Try to understand him. I haven't got time. I told you I heard something in the middle of the night once. What do you want us to do? What do you want us to...
Did you know the first black actor to win an Oscar wasn't even allowed to sit at the ceremony? Hollywood honored him, then shut him out. This is the shocking truth behind one of the industry's biggest hypocrisies. Number 25, Wano Hernandez. How did a former circus acrobat and radio announcer become one of Hollywood's first serious black leading men? Wano Hernandez didn't just act, he shattered Hollywood's rules. But despite his talent, the industry almost erased his name from history. Hernandez was born in Puerto Rico and worked in circuses, radio, and theater before making his Hollywood debut. What made him different? Well, unlike many actors at the time, he refused to play servants or comic relief. His breakout role in Intruder in the Dust, 1949, showed him as a strong, educated, and dignified black man, something Hollywood wasn't ready for. Critics raved about his performance. The New York Times called it one of the most forceful performances of the year. But instead of launching him into superstardom, the industry shut him out. Hollywood wasn't ready for black actors in leading roles. So what did he do? He went global, starring in films across Europe and Latin America. He never let Hollywood's racism define his career. Even Sidney Poitier, the first black man to win an Oscar for Best Actor, credited Hernandez for paving the way. Hernandez was one of the first black actors nominated for a major award, proving talent could break barriers, if only Hollywood had let it. Number 24, James Edwards. What happens when Hollywood gives you a breakthrough role, only to shut the door on you right after? James Edwards was a pioneer, landing a lead role in 1949 that should have made him a superstar. But Hollywood had other plans. Edwards starred in Home of the Brave, 1949, one of the first films to show the psychological struggles of a black soldier. His performance was raw, real, and ahead of its time. Audiences and critics were blown away. But here's where things get complicated. Hollywood didn't know what to do with him. Studios were scared to put a black actor in leading roles, so they stopped casting him. Instead of superstardom, he was given minor supporting roles, often playing soldiers or authority figures. He did, however, make his mark in some big films, like The Caine Mutiny, 1954, and Patton, 1970. He also became a trailblazer behind the scenes, mentoring young black actors and pushing for better representation. But here's the real gut punch. Many of the major roles that could have made him a star were later given to white actors in blackface or rewritten for white leads. James Edwards almost played Sidney Poitier's role in The Defiant Ones, 1958, but studio execs replaced him because they thought Poitier was less threatening. Hollywood robbed him of his moment. Number 23, Canada Lee. What if I told you one of Hollywood's greatest actors was blacklisted, not for bad acting, but for fighting for his rights? Canada Lee wasn't just a star, he was a fighter. He stood up to Hollywood's racism, and it cost him everything. A former professional boxer, Lee turned to acting in the 1930s, landing groundbreaking roles in Lifeboat, 1944, and Cry the Beloved Country, 1951. Unlike many black actors of his time, he refused to play degrading roles. He demanded dignity and depth in every character. But in the 1950s, America was in the grip of McCarthyism, a period where anyone suspected of being a communist was blacklisted. And since Lee spoke out against racism and supported civil rights, he was labeled a threat. Hollywood shut him out. Studios refused to hire him, and his career was destroyed overnight. His health declined under the pressure. By 1952, he died penniless at just 45 years old. His funeral was attended by legends like Orson Welles, but Hollywood never honored his legacy. Canada Lee was originally set to star in Cry the Beloved Country, 1951, but the U.S. government tried to block him from traveling because of his activism. He still made it, but it was his last major role. Number 22, Clarence Muse. Imagine appearing in over 150 films, writing screenplays, and being one of Hollywood's first black leading men, yet almost no one remembers your name. That's Clarence Muse's story. Muse wasn't just an actor, he was a trailblazer. In the 1920s, when black actors were barely seen in Hollywood, he became the first African American to star in a talking film, Hearts in Dixie, 1929. But Muse wasn't satisfied with playing stereotypical roles. He co-wrote scripts, composed music, and fought for more realistic black characters. He was one of the few black actors to speak out publicly against racism in Hollywood during the 1930s and 1940s. Despite his efforts, he was often cast as butlers and chauffeurs, because that's all Hollywood allowed. But instead of accepting these roles quietly, he transformed them. He brought intelligence, dignity, and quiet rebellion to every performance, proving black actors could be more than just comic relief. Even after decades in Hollywood, Muse never gave up. He kept acting into his 80s, appearing in Car Wash, 1976, and mentoring young black artists. Clarence Muse turned down a major film role in the 1930s because he refused to act in blackface, a move that could have ended his career. That's how much integrity he had. Number 21, Eddie Rochester Anderson. What if I told you the first black man to become a millionaire in Hollywood wasn't a dramatic actor, but a comedian? Eddie Anderson was a trailblazer, breaking barriers with his iconic role as Rochester on the Jack Benny program. Anderson's raspy voice and quick wit made him a fan favorite. But here's what most people don't know. He was the first black actor to have a regular role on a nationwide radio show. At a time when Hollywood mostly cast black actors in minor roles, Anderson was stealing the spotlight. However, success came with controversy. His character, Rochester, was a servant, and some criticized Anderson for playing into stereotypes. But here's what made Rochester different. He wasn't submissive. He was sarcastic, clever, and often outsmarted his white employer, flipping the script on racist tropes. Anderson used his fortune to uplift his community. During World War II, he bought war bonds to support black soldiers. He also invested in real estate, helping black families own homes when banks refused to lend to them. Anderson made so much money, he had to fight the IRS in court, twice. The government couldn't believe a black actor was making that much money in the 1940s. Number 20, Dooley Wilson. One of the most famous songs in movie history was performed by a black actor who wasn't even playing the piano. That's right, Dooley Wilson, best known as Sam in Casablanca, 1942, was actually a drummer, not a pianist. Wilson's performance of As Time Goes By became legendary. But here's the shocking truth. Hollywood never truly gave him credit. While his white co-stars became megastars, Wilson struggled to find roles after Casablanca. Before movies, Wilson was a jazz musician, touring across U.S. and Europe. His deep, soulful voice made him perfect for film, but Hollywood had one rule. Black actors could be in movies, but they couldn't be stars. After Casablanca, he appeared in a few films, but mostly returned to theater and music. He never got the leading roles he deserved. Despite this, his performance remains one of the most iconic in Hollywood history. Even people who've never seen Casablanca know the phrase, "Play it again, Sam," even though that exact line is never actually said in the movie. Wilson was so beloved that when he passed in 1953, his funeral was attended by both black and white Hollywood stars, a rare moment of unity in a deeply segregated industry. Number 19, Bill Bojangles Robinson. Imagine being so talented that a U.S. president calls you the greatest ambassador of goodwill in American history. That's the legacy of Bill Bojangles Robinson, one of the greatest tap dancers ever, but also one of Hollywood's biggest what-ifs. Robinson was a megastar in the 1930s and 1940s. He danced alongside Shirley Temple in classics like The Little Colonel, 1935, becoming the first black man to dance on screen with a white actress. It was a small step for Hollywood, but a giant leap for representation. Despite his fame, Hollywood limited him to playing butlers and sidekicks. He was never given the starring roles his talent deserved. But he didn't just accept it. He fought for better pay for black performers, and even refused to play demeaning, subservient roles. But here's the tragedy. Despite earning millions, Robeson died broke. He was so generous that he gave away most of his money to struggling black entertainers. When he passed away in 1949, Hollywood barely acknowledged his death, but thousands of black Americans lined up to honor him. Robeson once challenged racial segregation by refusing to perform for segregated audiences, a bold move in the 1930s that nearly ended his career. But he never backed down. Number 18, Stepin Fetchit, Lincoln Perry. He was the first black actor to become a millionaire, but at what cost? Lincoln Perry, better known as Stepin Fetchit, is one of Hollywood's most controversial figures. Some call him a pioneer, others call him a sellout. In the 1920s and 1930s, Perry was one of the biggest black stars in Hollywood. His lazy, slow-talking character, Stepin Fetchit, was beloved by white audiences, but deeply offensive to many black Americans. But here's what most people don't know. Perry was actually highly intelligent and strategic. He wasn't Stepin Fetchit in real life. He played dumb to get rich, knowing Hollywood wouldn't cast strong black men in leading roles. His strategy worked. He became the first black actor to earn $1 million, but success didn't last. By the 1950s, the civil rights movement rejected his character, and Perry was blacklisted from Hollywood. He spent the rest of his life defending his choices. He insisted he had played the only roles available to black actors at the time, and in some ways, he opened doors for future generations. Stepin Fetchit was good friends with Muhammad Ali, who admired his business smarts. Ali even called him the first black superstar, a reminder that history is never black and white. Number 17, Sam McDaniel. What if I told you one man appeared in over 200 films, but you've probably never heard his name? Sam McDaniel was a Hollywood workhorse, appearing in more movies than most stars, but always in the background. McDaniel was often cast as a butler, servant, or train porter, the only roles Hollywood allowed black actors to play. But unlike many others, he found a way to make an impact, bringing personality and humor to his roles. His most famous scene? He played the train porter in Gone with the Wind, 1939, delivering some of the movie's funniest lines. But while white actors became household names, McDaniel remained invisible. Despite the limitations, he kept working. He never turned down roles because he believed visibility mattered. His sister, Hattie McDaniel, made history as the first black actor to win an Oscar, but Sam, he never got the same recognition. McDaniel was one of 6 siblings who all worked in Hollywood. His family was the first black dynasty in film, but Hollywood never gave them credit. Number 16, Spencer Williams. Most actors dream of being famous, but what if your biggest success comes decades after you die? That's exactly what happened to Spencer Williams. Williams was a pioneer both in front of and behind the camera. He was one of the first black filmmakers writing and directing movies for black audiences in the 1940s. His most famous film, The Blood of Jesus, 1941, became a classic of black cinema. But here's the twist. Despite his directing talent, Hollywood only cast him in comedic roles. He became famous as Andy in Amos and Andy, a show that later became controversial for its racial stereotypes. Williams's real legacy? He preserved black culture on film at a time when few others could. His movies were dismissed in his lifetime, but today, film historians call him one of the most important black directors of all time. His film, The Blood of Jesus, was selected for preservation by the Library of Congress, proving that his work wasn't just entertainment, it was history. Number 15, Louis Armstrong. You know him as a jazz legend, but did you know he also made Hollywood history? Louis Armstrong wasn't just a musician, he was a trailblazer on the big screen, fighting for better black representation. Hollywood often cast black actors in demeaning roles, but Armstrong refused to be just another stereotype. He brought class, talent, and undeniable star power to every film he appeared in, including High Society, 1956, and New Orleans, 1947. But behind the scenes, he fought an even bigger battle. In an era when Hollywood still segregated black and white actors, Armstrong used his influence to push for more opportunities for black performers. He famously refused to perform in front of segregated audiences, costing him gigs but never his dignity. Still, Hollywood didn't give him the acting roles his talent deserved. Studios loved his music but didn't see him as a leading man. Imagine if he had been given the same opportunities as his white co-stars. Armstrong was the first black entertainer to host a nationally sponsored radio show, something unheard of at the time. He didn't just break records, he broke barriers. Number 14, Cab Calloway. The original king of cool. Before James Brown, before Michael Jackson, there was Cab Calloway. His electrifying stage presence and signature moves made him one of the most charismatic performers of all time. Calloway made his mark in Hollywood with musical films that showcased his talent, like Stormy Weather, 1943. Unlike many black performers who were forced into minor roles, Calloway often played himself, larger than life, stylish, and endlessly talented. But his influence stretched far beyond the movies. He was a style icon, a musical innovator, and a mentor to young black artists. His flashy zoot suits and energetic dance moves later inspired artists like James Brown and Prince. Yet, despite his success, Calloway still faced discrimination. Even at the height of his fame, he was denied entry into clubs where his white co-stars were welcomed. Instead of backing down, he demanded equal treatment and fought for better pay for black musicians. Calloway's signature dance moves directly influenced Michael Jackson's moonwalk. He was doing it decades before MJ made it famous. Number 13, Herb Jeffries. Imagine being a cowboy in Hollywood while being black. Sounds impossible? Well, not for Herb Jeffries. He became the first black singing cowboy, shattering racial barriers in Western films of the 1930s and 1940s. In a time when Hollywood refused to cast black actors as heroes, Jeffries took matters into his own hands. He produced and starred in all-black westerns like Harlem on the Prairie, 1937, and The Bronze Buckaroo, 1939, proving that black actors deserved to be the good guys, not just sidekicks. But here's what makes his story even crazier. Jeffries was of mixed-race heritage, with a light complexion. Instead of passing as white, he fully embraced black culture and dedicated his career to uplifting black cinema. Unlike many of his peers, Jeffries had a long career, later becoming a jazz singer with Duke Ellington's orchestra. He continued performing into his 90s, proving that real legends never fade. Jeffries was offered Hollywood roles as a white actor, but he refused, saying he wanted to represent black heroes instead. How many stars today would make that choice? Number 12, Harry Belafonte. What if I told you one man was a Hollywood star, a music icon, and a civil rights leader, all at once? Well, that's Harry Belafonte. Belafonte was one of the first black actors to achieve mainstream success as a leading man, starring in Carmen Jones, 1954, and Island in the Sun, 1957. But while Hollywood wanted him to just smile and act, he had bigger plans. He used his fame to fight for racial equality, working closely with Martin Luther King Jr. and helping fund the civil rights movement. At the height of his career, he risked everything by speaking out against injustice, even when Hollywood tried to silence him. Despite his good looks and talent, Belafonte faced constant barriers. White Hollywood didn't know how to handle a black heartthrob. He was often cast in love stories where his romances were censored to avoid offending racist audiences. Yet, he never let Hollywood define him. He became a global humanitarian, proving that true greatness isn't just about fame, it's about impact. Belafonte was offered the lead role in Lilies of the Field, 1963, but he turned it down. The role went to Sidney Poitier, who won an Oscar for it. Number 11, Brock Peters. Imagine giving one of the most heartbreaking performances in film history, only to be overshadowed by Hollywood's racial bias. That's exactly what happened to Brock Peters. Peters is best known for his gut-wrenching performance as Tom Robinson in To Kill a Mockingbird, 1962. His portrayal of a black man falsely accused of assault was so powerful that many audience members were left in tears. Even Gregory Peck, who played Atticus Finch, later admitted that Peters deserved an Oscar. But guess what? Hollywood never even nominated him. At the time, black actors rarely got recognition, no matter how brilliant their performances were. Despite this, Peters built a successful career, appearing in classics like Carmen Jones, 1954, and Porgy and Bess, 1959. He later became a voice actor and a sci-fi icon, starring in Star Trek and Star Wars. Even though he never won an Oscar, Brock Peters was chosen to give the eulogy at Gregory Peck's funeral. That's how much respect his co-stars had for him, even if Hollywood didn't. Number 10, Ivan Dixon. He starred in a legendary film, became a trailblazing director, and shaped black television, but almost no one talks about him today. Dixon's breakout role came in A Raisin in the Sun, 1961, where he played alongside Sidney Poitier in one of the most important black films ever made. His performance was gripping, but he quickly realized that Hollywood wasn't offering black actors many opportunities. So he made a bold move. He stepped behind the camera. Dixon became one of the first black directors in television, working on major shows like The Waltons and The Rockford Files. Unlike many black actors of his time, he wasn't satisfied with just taking roles. He wanted to create them. His biggest impact? Directing the iconic 1973 film The Spook Who Sat by the Door, a radical story about a black CIA agent who trains revolutionaries. The movie was so controversial that the FBI allegedly tried to suppress it. Dixon was one of the first black directors to work on mainstream white-led TV shows. Without him, many black filmmakers today might not have gotten their shot. Number 9, Paul Robeson. What if I told you one of the greatest actors of the 20th century was also an athlete, a lawyer, a singer, and a revolutionary? Paul Robeson wasn't just a performer, he was a force of nature. Robeson became an international superstar after his iconic performance in The Emperor Jones, 1933. His deep, commanding voice made him perfect for powerful roles, and he soon became famous for singing Old Man River in Showboat, 1936. But Robeson wasn't content with just being an entertainer. He wanted justice. He openly fought against racism in Hollywood, refusing to take roles that demeaned black people. He used his fame to speak out against colonialism and oppression worldwide. But his activism came at a price. The U.S. government blacklisted him, revoked his passport, and effectively ended his career. Hollywood turned his back on him, but history didn't. Today, Robeson is celebrated as one of the most influential black figures of all time. Robeson was an NFL player before becoming a star. He was one of the first black football players in the league's early years. Talk about a multi-talented legend. Number 8, Woody Strode. Ever heard of the black action hero who paved the way for Denzel Washington and Samuel L. Jackson? Well, meet Woody Strode, the man who brought power, presence, and history to Hollywood. Before acting, Strode was a college football star and one of the first black players in the NFL. But when Hollywood came calling, he became one of the first black actors to break the silent obedient stereotype. His breakthrough came in Spartacus, 1960, where he had an intense one-on-one gladiator battle with Kirk Douglas, a fight scene that was shocking at the time because a black man was shown as equal to a white star. He also starred in The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance, 1962, and later became a go-to actor for tough, powerful roles. But his career could have been even bigger. Many directors hesitated to cast him in lead roles because of his race. Despite that, Strode carved out a legacy as one of the first true black action stars. Strode was so physically dominant that he was almost cast as the original Tarzan. Hollywood wasn't ready for a black Tarzan in the 1940s, but imagine how legendary that would have been. Number 7. James Baskett. What if winning an Oscar didn't mean Hollywood would respect you? James Baskett made history, but he never got to enjoy his success. Baskett is best known for playing Uncle Remus in Song of the South, 1946, the Disney film that gave us the classic song Zip-a-dee-doo-dah. His performance was so charming and heartfelt that Walt Disney personally campaigned for him to receive an Academy Award. But here's the shocking part. He wasn't even allowed to attend the film's premiere. It was held in Atlanta, where segregation laws banned black attendees. Imagine starring in a Disney movie and being treated like you didn't belong. Despite the film's controversy today, Baskett's performance was groundbreaking. He became the first black man to receive an honorary Academy Award. Sadly, he died just 2 years later at age 44, never fully seeing the impact of his work. Baskett originally auditioned just to voice the film's animals, but his performance was so good that Disney gave him the lead role instead. Number 6. Rex Ingram. What if Hollywood gave you power, but only as a villain? Well, that's the story of Rex Ingram, a black actor with a presence so commanding that he often stole the show. Ingram's deep, thunderous voice and towering frame made him perfect for larger-than-life roles. His most famous performance? The genie in The Thief of Baghdad, 1940, where he literally towered over his co-stars. He also played strong supporting roles in films like Sahara, 1943, and Cabin in the Sky, 1943. But despite his talent, Hollywood typecast him as mystical, dangerous, or exotic. Ingram wanted to play heroes, but Hollywood only saw him as the scary black man. Frustrated, he left the U.S. and built a career in Europe, where he was treated with more respect. He may not have had as many opportunities as he deserved, but his legacy remains. His deep, booming voice inspired generations of actors. Ingram was offered roles in major Hollywood films, but he turned down many of them because he refused to play demeaning characters. He'd rather be a legend on his own terms. Number 5. Napoleon Whiting. What if you appeared in some of Hollywood's biggest films, but never got the credit you deserved? That's the story of Napoleon Whiting. Whiting was a Hollywood veteran, appearing in classics like Giant, 1956, starring James Dean, Rock Hudson, and Elizabeth Taylor. He played Jefferson, the loyal servant, a role that, while limited, showcased his incredible screen presence. Though often typecast as a butler, Whiting brought dignity and depth to every role he played. He wasn't just there for decoration, he made audiences remember him, even in small parts. But like so many black actors of his time, Hollywood refused to give him bigger roles. Despite that, Whiting never quit. He continued working in films and TV for decades, proving that sometimes legends are built in the background. In Giant, 1956, he delivered one of the most iconic last lines in film history, and even though he only had a minor role, many critics still mention him when talking about the movie. Number 4. Leigh Whipper. Imagine breaking into Hollywood as a black actor in the 1930s and actually making history? Leigh Whipper did just that. Whipper was the first black member of the Actors' Equity Association, meaning he helped pave the way for fair treatment of black performers. His biggest role? The terrifying but wise old man in Oxbow Incident, 1943. His performance was so powerful that it remains one of the most haunting scenes in Western film history. But Hollywood wasn't kind to him. He was often cast as a mysterious, mystical figure rather than the complex roles given to white actors. Still, he refused to take demeaning parts, choosing quality over quantity. His legacy is clear. Without Whipper, many black actors wouldn't have had the chance to step into Hollywood at all. Whipper was also a playwright and activist, proving that his talents extended far beyond the screen. Number 3, Sidney Poitier. What if one performance could shatter racial barriers in Hollywood forever? That's exactly what Sidney Poitier did. Poitier wasn't just a star, he was a revolution. In 1963, he became the first black man to win an Academy Award for Best Actor for Lilies of the Field. But before that, he was already breaking barriers with films like The Defiant Ones, 1958, and A Raisin in the Sun, 1961. What made him different? Poitier refused to play stereotypical roles. He demanded respect in every character he portrayed, bringing intelligence, dignity, and strength to the screen. But success didn't come easy. In the early days, he was turned down for roles because he didn't sound black enough. Even after winning his Oscar, he faced backlash. Some black activists felt he was playing two perfect roles, while white Hollywood still hesitated to give him full freedom. But Poitier kept pushing forward, later becoming a director, activist, and global icon. Poitier once turned down a role that required him to bow down to a white man, saying he'd rather starve than accept it. That's integrity. Number 2, Ossie Davis. What if your career wasn't just about acting, but about changing the world? Ossie Davis lived that reality. Davis was more than an actor. He was a storyteller, a civil rights activist, and a cultural icon. While he starred in major films like Do the Right Thing, 1989, and Malcolm X, 1992, his early career was all about fighting against Hollywood's racist system. In the 1950s and 1960s, Davis refused to take degrading roles, even if it meant struggling financially. He believed that black actors should be heroes, leaders, and intellectuals, not just sidekicks and servants. His wife, Ruby Dee, was equally legendary, and together they became one of Hollywood's most influential couples. Davis also gave one of the most powerful eulogies in history at Malcolm X's funeral. His speech became legendary, proving that his voice wasn't just meant for the screen, but for real-world change. Ossie Davis wrote and directed one of the first all-black westerns, Cotton Comes to Harlem, 1970, proving that black filmmakers could take on any genre. Number 1, Richard B. Harrison. Before Poitier, before Robeson, before anyone, there was Richard B. Harrison. He is the forgotten pioneer of black acting. Harrison was one of the first black men to lead a Broadway production, starring in The Green Pastures, 1936, a play that toured the country and broke racial barriers. Unlike most black actors of his time, he played a wise, powerful, and respected leader, not a stereotype. His work influenced an entire generation of black performers, proving that they didn't have to accept Hollywood's racist limitations. Though he didn't make it to the silver screen, his impact was felt everywhere. Harrison was so respected that his image was included in many black history textbooks, but Hollywood still barely acknowledges his contributions today. If you love this video, you'll want to watch the next one. It's packed with even more shocking Hollywood history. Hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss a story. See you in the next one.